All right. So if we're finding the maximums or the minimums, we found the derivative. Super. Now what? Set it equal to 0. Why are we going to set it equal to 0? Yep, maximum and minimums occur when the slope is 0. So if we found the derivative and we set it equal to 0, we'll find maximums and minimums. Okay, so we set it equal to 0. Means we need to solve for x. What do we do here to solve for x? Not FOIL. We always say that. Factor. It's a quadratic. I've got an x squared. I've got an x squared. I've got an x. I can't just subtract 24. I've got an x squared and an x. I can't do that. I can do quadratic formula or I could factor. Let's factor it. What could I take out of everything in terms of factoring? They all have a 3 in them, so let's take the 3 out. That will make this a little bit easier numbers. So take a 3 out. It gives me x squared minus 6x plus 8. The 3 doesn't really even matter anymore because if I divide everything by 3, my answers are still the same. So I'm just kind of disregard it and say, who cares? I'm going to factor it. So remember back to Algebra 1, I need two numbers that multiply together to get 8, and they need to add together to get negative 6. Negative 4, negative 2. Those two numbers multiply together to get 8, and they add to get negative 6. So is that my answer? So what's my answer then? X is equal to what? 4 and 2. We're setting it equal to 0. We change our signs. So 4 and 2 are my two answers here. Once you find that, then we're going to make like the cheapest graph of all time. F prime of x graph. We're going to graph what's happening on the derivative. I'm going to make a little number line here. What two numbers can I put on that number line? At 2 and at 4. Something is happening at 2 and 4. Okay, the slope was 0, so either at 2 or 4, I'm thinking it's probably a maximum or minimum. It doesn't have to be, and we'll get into that tomorrow, but it's probably a maximum or a minimum there. Okay, what did we say had to be true about f prime if it's a maximum or if it's a maximum? What had to be true about f prime if it's a maximum? My slope had to change from positive to negative. So I need to see at 2, does my slope on one side positive and my slope on the other side negative? How could I find out what the slope is before 2? What's a number before 2? 1. I could plug 1 in to find out what the slope is. And all I need to decide if it's positive or negative. Okay? Which equation would I plug that into? I want to know the slope. I'm plugging into the derivative. I want to know slope, so I'm plugging in the derivative. So I want any number less than 2. What's the easiest number less than 2? 0. Let's plug in 0 right there. If I plug in 0, 3 times 0 squared minus 18 times 0 plus 24, what happens when you plug in 0? You get 24. Is 24 positive or negative? So I'm going to put a plus sign on that side. Any number. I could have picked anything in the world. 1, 1.67, negative 4,000. It would have gotten me a positive number when I plugged it in. Okay, because we already found the critical points. Okay, now I need to find something in the middle here. So a number between 2 and 4. 3. So let's plug in 3. See what's happening at 3. Do you want to plug 3 in here? Up on top? Yucky. It's going to be nasty. You can do it in your calculator, but you don't have to. This is the same thing right here. Let's plug in 3 right there to see what we get. Okay? 3 minus 4, negative 1. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So negative 1 times 1. Negative slopes in between. Okay? And then the last one, I need a number bigger than 4. We'd like to think it's positive, right? It doesn't have to be, though. It could be negative. Let's pick a number bigger than 4. 5. So 5 minus 4 is 1, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So 1 times 3, 3. Positive. I don't care what the number is. It's positive. Make sense? Let's visualize what this means. Right here it says we have a positive slope. We stop for a second, and then we have negative slope. What does that look like when you go from a positive slope to a negative slope? What's happening at 2? That is a maximum. That is a maximum right there. At 4, okay, on one side I'm going negative, I'm going down slope, and then I change and go to a positive slope. If I go from a negative slope to a positive slope, what's true? That is a minimum. So 2 is a max and 4 is a min. Okay? The question though was, what were the values? How high did the ball go, or how low did the ball go? What could I do to determine how high or how low the ball went? Plug 2 and 4 in. Where am I going to plug those in? F of prime or F? F, because F is going to tell me height. F prime tells me slope. I want to know the actual values. I'm going to plug into F. Okay? So we would want to find out what F of 2 is and what F of 4 is. Okay, and when I find those would be the maximum values and the minimum values. Okay, let's not type that in.